You need winners? Let the pros show you how to make money. General Manager Al DeMarco, a regular contributor on Fox Sports, MSNBC, and Comcast Sports TV, brings over 25 years of handicapping experience to the table. CEO Steve Budin, the author of Bets, Drugs, and Rock and Roll, is the man responsible for creating the online betting industry. Together, they lead PickNation.com, your #1 source for winners.
2 weeks and counting until the NFL season is finally over, but still plenty of money-making opportunities, and that's what this show is all about. The Pick Nation Report, where we break down all of your games, the only pregame show to do so in America from a point spread perspective. My name is Al DeMarco, along with Steve Budin. We've been doing this for over 20 years, each of us. Me, I used to be a former sports reporter, so I take the experiences I gathered and gained from being in the locker room, around players, on the field, dealing with coaches, and I apply what I learned into being a handicapper. I analyze team matchups, personnel. That's what's key to me. Steve, totally different perspective, son of a bookmaker, which sounds so cool when you say it, and we can get away with that on national TV.
It's about the nicest thing that's ever been said about me.
Son of a bookmaker, but also a bookmaker himself at one time, and the guy who was personally responsible for creating what we now know as the offshore sportsbook industry some 20 years ago.
That's correct. So what I do is I utilize my sources that someone like me can only have from being in this business 20 years. We pool those sources, we name them, we call them crews, we come out with their plays every week. I think I hit 7 out of my last 10. We're killing it.
Yeah, and listen, the final 2 weeks of the NFL season, in the old days, and I'm talking maybe 5 to 10 years ago, these were dead weeks. It was very difficult to bet these 2 weeks. It was very difficult to win because you had so many teams that were playing with a lack of motivation. However, the NFL has done us a favor because now that they backloaded the divisional games and the latter part of the season, you have so many teams that are still vying for the playoff berths. You have so much jockeying going around. Who's going to be a wild card team? Who's going to be in first place? Who might get home field advantage, at least in the first round or maybe a first round bye? The games have value, and that helps tremendously as a handicapper because otherwise you're reduced to looking at these games like they're preseason action. And, I think people out there forget. We have been in here, my God, I've been a handicapper for 25 years. You've been doing this for 20-some years. Before they expanded the playoff field many years ago, and there was just nothing to find in these last couple of weeks. You'd find 1 or 2 games, and when you have a specific number of games like that, it's almost like a Monday night game. The lines are so sharp, it's hard to win.
And bookmakers would put those non-meaning games in what we call a circle, not allowing you to bet a normal amount on them because they just didn't want to have a lot of action on a game that was meaningless. So even if there was an advantage to betting those games, that got cut off right at the front of the line with the bookmakers putting the game in a circle. And like you mentioned, as you get to this time of the year with the games that do matter, that line is about as sharp as it's going to be. The bookmakers at this point really know how to gauge public perception, giving you no real big advantage in the line. Your opinion has to be dead on at this point.
Well, we've got lots of games to talk about. We're going to break them all down for you. We're going to talk about some common scams from sports services in this industry that really give the entire industry a black mark, but we feel like we're the white knights here. We know what we do. We know it's 100% with integrity, and we're here to expose the frauds, and we're going to talk about that as well. But first, we're going to head to the phones, and we're going to pick up with Steve, who's calling us from Miami, and no big surprise, Steve, you want to talk about the Dolphins-Lions game. How you doing?
How you doing, Al? How you doing, Steve?
Good to speak to you. What's happening, buddy?
Good, guys.
Not a whole lot of fun down there in Florida, huh?
Yeah, no, not really, but we're trying to see if we can cover one of these Sundays.
Well, yeah, you have no problem covering as long as the games aren't in Miami. That's the problem. The games in Miami, I mean, the Dolphins are 5-15 against the spread their last 20 home games, but losing outright to the Buffalo Bills, I don't care that the Bills have been playing better here of late, but you lose outright when you've still got a faint hope of a playoff shot, and you lose to the Bills outright at home, that's just embarrassing.
Well, I was at that game with my son, and, in one of the most crucial points of the game, Dolphins had it 2nd down and 3 in the second half, and Penny was just getting into a groove. They shuffled him off the field, brought in the Wildcat to gain nothing, wound up punting on that drive. And obviously there was a ton of moments at the game where the Dolphins didn't capitalize. But when I saw that at that moment, I looked at my son and said, hey, buddy, forget it. Your Dolphins aren't winning this game. I just knew it. And I think there's an identity crisis in that team. I really don't. I think they've forgotten how to run. Henny's not throwing the ball well. There's no confidence whatsoever in this Dolphin team. Detroit, on the other hand, well, they've been a monster against the spread. I mean, if you've done nothing else but bet Detroit this year and against Carolina, you've made a ton of money. Detroit's coming off their first road win, big game. They actually have momentum coming into this game, which they're not used to. You know, I like Detroit in this spot. I'm going to go against Miami here, go with the trend of that Miami stinks at home and can't cover the spread, and I'm going to go with Detroit. What do you think, Al?
I think this is a game I won't watch and I won't bet, and nor do I have any pick on it. I mean, listen, the lines, as you said, this year they've been a great play against the spread, 11-3 against the spread, and last week the overtime win at Tampa Bay snapped a 26-game losing streak straight up on the road, and they put a lot of yards up against that Tampa Bay defense, which isn't any good. Tampa Bay doesn't have a good defense, 433 total yards for the Lions. Miami has basically hung around every single game this year because of their defense, but you're right, they don't have an offensive identity, and that's the problem. When you have a quarterback that has 14 touchdown passes, 16 interceptions, it doesn't matter that Brandon Marshall's out there. He can't get you the ball.
And in that Miami game against the Jets, they hung around because they had no offense. In that game. So when you have not a great defense and you have not a great offense, I don't know where you go from there.
I'd rather talk about the any other game here on the board than this one. I mean, so there you go. There's my non-committal. I mean, if I had to flip a coin, that would be about the best you get.
Well, the most telling thing is sitting in the stadium in Miami there was more talk about LeBron James, than any Miami Dolphin football player, and that should tell you where the football program's at in that town.
Yeah, well, in terms of the overall interest in this game, I'm a little more excited about the Little Caesars Pizza Bowl tonight between Florida International and Toledo. Hey, thanks for giving us a call, Dan. Steve, we appreciate it. Heading back to Florida, but this time switching coasts, going over to Tampa, where Dan is joining us. How you doing, Dan?
Good, guys. How you doing today?
What's going on in Tampa Bay, Dan?
The weather's beautiful. Waiting for, I'm not a big Pete Carroll fan. I hope he comes here and gets his butt beat.
Tampa Bay had some problems last week.
Yeah, well, ups and downs.
Well, I don't know. There haven't been many ups if you've been betting Tampa Bay at home during Raheem Morris's tenure, 2-12-1 against the spread. That's not exactly making anybody money, the Bucs at home.
Yeah, this is one of those games where you got a team from Seattle coming all the way across the country to play at 1 o'clock, and a lot of, which is really 10 in the morning. But, again, to lay 6 points with Tampa Bay at home, I think is a bad idea. I like Seattle here. I think they're going to come in and play well. They're fighting. They're in the playoff hunt. I'll take my chances with Hasselbeck.
Yeah. They're in the playoff hunt at 6-8.
Right,
that's a scary thing. They're right there, tied for first.
That's exactly
it's amazing.
Right. That's exactly right.
I mean, you realize there's going to be some quality teams, maybe the Giants, maybe the Packers, most likely, maybe even these Buccaneers that are going to be sitting home with a better record, watching a horrible team from this division, from the NFC West, whether it's Arizona or Seattle or wherever, get into the playoffs. Well, all they can do is unwrap their Christmas presents and watch the games on TV.
Dan, if you're in Tampa, do go to the game because it looks like they're having a hard problem filling those stands.
Yes, they definitely are. With the big run a few years back and the Buccaneers playing well, you couldn't get a ticket. There was a waiting list.
Yeah, but I hear that they serve alcohol well into the fourth quarter there, so that's good.
That's always good. You have to fill the tank somehow.
Hey, and here's the other thing. The greatest thing going for Tampa Bay might be today, Matt Hasselbeck, who in his last 4 games, 13 turnovers, 10 interceptions among those 13 turnovers. That's just Hasselbeck alone. Forget about what else his team's doing. And defensively, this Seattle team, they have no defense. I mean, they have given up 33 or more points in 6 of their last 8 games, 39 or more in 4 of their last 5. So, the question here is, will Tampa, it seems like every home game they score 17 points, they score 21 points. They just don't have that type of offense that's explosive, that can put points on the board, which is why I wonder, even how bad Seattle was playing, if Tampa has the offense to post a win big enough to cover by a touchdown or more. I just don't know.